is Sandra Gesing from San Diego Supercomputer Center and U.S. Research Software Engineers talking about the NAIR portal.
Thank you, Dana. And let me see how that works here now. So yeah, my talk is about envisioning the NAIR portal, AI dreams, data dilemmas, and community solutions. And yeah, so I talk really briefly about this. I think that is the first version of my slides I sent, not the last one. So that is when you're not on time sending your slides. So what is a science gateway? We are talking about a portal really connecting expensive resources and data to scientists and to audiences that really people can work together. And that is what the NAIR portal also wants to do. It brings together the audiences, and why science gateways matter for AI research, because it's really bridging the gap between user and resources. And the NAIR portal, instead of portal, you could say science gateway. It's a single access point for computing data sets and AI models, collaboration-driven and standardized resource allocation. And the NAIR portal, yeah, it's a vision for the future, really transitioning from a pilot portal you might have seen, or a lot of you have seen, to a community-driven platform. And we really want to support the NAIR portal should really support both short-term, 3 years, and long-term needs of users, because everything that we envision now for the next 10 years, we have to start to build soon, that users can really use it and that they don't need to have already a new solution after 2-3 years again, because it's already out of date then. And it would really serve a broader audience as NAIR moves beyond the pilot phase. So we are in the second year, and we will move soon beyond the pilot phase. So we got a SGX3, the Center of Excellence for Science Gateways, and we got the NAIR supplement. And yeah, the mission is to find out what should the NAIR portal look like after the pilot phase. And we thought there are 3 ways to get really feedback from the community. We did an online survey. We did 6 focus groups, 2 hours each online, and we had a 2 days in-person workshop. And the survey period was from October 2nd, 2024 to January 2nd, 2025. We distributed it to about 54,000 researchers, educators, students, email lists. We got a total response of 1,234, and valid responses were then around 1,057. And the total responses were higher. They just filled out at the first page and then they checked out, so we got only their demographics. So the purpose was really to gather insight on user experience, needs, expectation for a future NAIR portal. And this is what comes now a little bit a sneak peek into the results. We are working on the report at the moment. We aim at having it ready in 2-3 weeks. And then we share it with the whole community, of course. So we had really a lot of the wide range of technical and scientific backgrounds, from academia, from industry, nonprofits, government. We had also the roles represented from researchers, faculty, program directors, CTOs, software developers, HPC specialists, research software engineers, different institution types, universities, research institutes, government labs, nonprofit, tribal colleges. And we asked, for example, so what is your level of expertise? So, and 15% said, yeah, I'm an expert. 21%, I'm really proficient. 32, I'm knowledgeable. Then 30, yeah, I'm aware of machine learning AI. And 3% said, I'm not aware of anything I can do with that for my research or for my education. And so we asked also, what kind of applications are you using? And so then there was data science, bioinformatics, cybersecurity, education, large language models, predictive analysis, AI ethics research. And how do you plan to use, so that was one of the questions, so if you want to have a portal, how do you plan to use NER? And so 44% said, oh yeah, I want to create software algorithms. 41 were like, oh, data production. They could select several answers, so it doesn't come exactly then to 100%, so that is why the numbers are so high. 21% said, oh yeah, we need to build in cyber infrastructure. And 27 said, oh, I'm not using AI for research. And the 7% were other around ethics, building AI literacy, developing custom models. And so the top candidates, what type of AI participants are already using, was 55% machine learning, 36 said deep learning, then 36 neural networks, and 32 NLPs, and more. So there was really a long list where they could put their comments in, but these were really the top tiers. And what do you want from the portal then if you do this already? And really integration with existing HPC infrastructure like Access, TAG, NAS, NCAR, and support for LLMs, AlphaFold, PyTorch, TensorFlow, and custom AI tools. So that were the highlights we got answered. And yes, we were very excited about the key outcomes. I love the little puppies. So there's really a strong demand for NER portal services. And that is what we wanted to hear. Is really a NER portal, does the community want a NER portal? Because that is the first question. And they really wanted 92% that they need really a NER portal. Then the computational data needs are well aligned with NER capabilities. So there's a really strong demand for compute, storage, and AI ML tools. That is what NER does. So that is great. And then, yeah, really, researchers from various domains see value in centralized AI resources, that they don't have to, search for them all over the place. So science gateways maximize impact by offerings, So really scalable AI training environments, seamless data and model sharing, user-friendly access was one of the big topics. And that collaboration is key, which is also, again, that points to a portal. You really want, that the collaboration can happen in a portal. Then we did the focus groups. And yes, with the result of the focus groups, we prepared then also the workshop. So we asked the focus group what we should ask in the workshop. No, not so extreme. So we had 6 topics: portal, education, resource providers, conducting research via the NER portal, portal and support, and conducting training, learning modalities on AI via the NER portal. So we did this in January. We had in total 44 participants distributed over the 6 topics. And key outcomes again, the puppies very happy. Yes, user needs and learning, centralized and integrated AI resources points again to a portal. The AI research and infrastructure needs centralized data repositories with FAIR principles, for example, streamlined AI workflows, tools, and concerns about AI bias and explainability and governance. There's also the resource providers and access so the shift from hardware-centric description to workflow-based categorization, and again, streamlined onboarding and support, enhanced automation, resource allocation, and job submission. And a big topic was also building community and sustainability, broader outreach, centralized programs. So, and then we had the 2-day workshops. So that was a group that met in San Diego for 2 days. So that was just 2 weeks ago. We had 84 participants, 12 working groups, no more than 7 people per group, that really nobody could hide in the group and not contribute and, or shy away. So, and normally, we use design thinking for this. So we We did not have many talks at that workshop. People did work on the ideas. And normally design thinking is you look at complex problems, then you emphasize, with a survey, with focus groups, so we did that before. Then you define the problem statements, and then you ideate and prototype. And what we did was we defined the problem statements for the groups. We gave them 12 problems, and people could decide to which problems they want to go. And then they did ideation over 1.5 days, and then really did a paper prototype. So we have now 12 prototypes, and we will publish the report about this. And the key outcomes, you can see we were again very excited. We had the puppies back. So it's really a lot of people, or half of the room, I would say, with their solution were like, we want AI-powered assistance, chatbots, guided recommendations, personalized suggestion. What was interesting about that, we talked that we have to be careful with AI, and half of the room said, but we need AI to make it better. Guided recommendations. It's great. I think it's really fantastic to use NAIR, also to make the NAIR environment AI-driven. So community engagement, so really leaderboards, gamification, expert networks was some of the results. Then streamlined resource discovery was often a topic, that there's a smart search, knowledge graphs, fair data tools. So ethical and transparent AI use, integrated ethics training, accountability measures, and bridging the resource gap. So really assisting postdocs and new researchers with scalable AI workflows. And you see a little bit the pictures from it. Then at the end, we had a Mentimeter feedback. So everyone could give us, we asked questions like, what are the most important next steps for NAIR from your perspective? I mean, we had over 80 people in the room. How can we keep this momentum going beyond today? What is the one immediate action you or your organization can take to support NAIR? What does success for NAIR look like to you in the next 3 to 5 years? And the key areas in the answers were really funding and planning. Yeah, you see the word cloud, big funding, big vision, big community. Community and engagement, emphasizing user experience, research, and engagement. And yeah, data sharing. Need for better mechanisms for sharing AI-related data sets. And the final thoughts were then really, the NAIR portal has a strong potential to drive AI research with the whole community. And we think science gateways in general will drive AI research because these are portals, it's an ecosystem. With centralized tools and creating access to services and really to improve collaboration across academia, industry, government. That are all the areas we need. Non-profit, and really increase computational equity for our research and education communities. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Sandra. We do. We do have time for a few questions between each talk. So does anybody have any questions for Sandra? You ain't. You're good.
Okay.
Maybe this was more of a question for the previous speaker, but since now nobody else was interested. So I see a lot of demand initially for the proposal. The demand was higher than the supply, as we saw in the statistics before. But the actual use was much lower than the demand, which seemed to me to match the supply, actually, the actual use. So it's natural that PIs overestimate their demand because it's better to have extra than to not have enough eventually. So I was thinking maybe a better way to provide these resources is to have a much lower entry barrier. Like, I need 300 hours for next week because I have a paper due and we really need this resource. Can we just submit something real quick and in 3 days it gets approved and we can use it, and then maybe for the next month I don't need to use any resources because we don't have a paper due, we have our own development machines to do the coding and all that. So instead of having this big proposals that you have to exactly specify the amount of hours. You have to be specific about your project and the needs and all that, which is kind of hard to be very specific, and naturally you overestimate. Is it possible to make it much simpler, this process, like in the shorter duration than 1 year, maybe like three weeks, or just this is the amount of credit I need, can I get it quickly, do our experiments and be done?
I think, yeah, that is beyond my pay grade to answer that. But yeah, you know, NSF officers in the room who hear that yeah, maybe flexible, you know, application processes.
I would actually defer that question to the after lunch allocations, Both.
I can give a short answer to that. We're working on doing the equivalent of a startup allocation, which would actually address what you're talking about, maybe not within 3 days, because we still have a lot of
Maybe not
processes.
3 days, maybe 2 weeks.
But
something
yeah,
like
but
that.
the intent that this is, you know, a week or two that we would be able to turn something around of limited allocation. The other thing is don't forget that these are not the only resources out there. You can go to other providers. I don't want to be too preferential, but I know the most about what's going on in Access. You can do an Explorer allocation, which also can be gotten relatively quickly to deal with these short-term small resource needs. Many of the other providers have similar options for startup type allocations.
Thank you.
Mike?
Yeah, and to give just a hair more detail to that, the lowest level of NSF's access program, the Explorer, I think they call it, turnaround time on proposal to be accepted, one, the barrier to entry is like a paragraph, not even an abstract, if I remember right. 2, we love NAIR also, but Access fills a need for a lot of people that are in the open science area. Turnaround times on the order, not counting the resource provider, but at the Access allocations people, turnaround times on Explorers are measured in a couple of days often. Resource providers may take a little bit longer to get set up. There may also be people on your campus, yes, completely biased plug for the Campus Champions organization, but the CARC people do it as well, where you might already have people on campus that could slip you into their existing access allocation for short deadline, especially for the small end stuff. And so please look those people up, and in worst case, I forgot my name tag, but half the CI and resource provider people.
Just email me
can
and
find
I'll forward it to Mike.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Understood.
the suggestion is to have something like the Explorer allocation on the NAIR pilot.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions for Sandra? Let's thank Sandra again. All right, next up is who you've met before, Anna Hunsinger from Internet 2, talking about the MSCC AI survey.
Thank you, Dana, and good morning, everybody. So I am here now to talk a little bit about an effort that we did relative to the NAIR pilot. So let me get started here. Oops. There we go. So first, let me tell you a little bit about the MSCC. The MSCC is an effort to enable cyber infrastructure. In other words, how do we make it possible, practical, and easy? Okay, and it's an effort focused on a variety of institutions of many sizes, and institutions that are historically Black colleges and universities, tribal colleges and universities, Hispanic-serving institutions, and other minority-serving institutions. So what MSCC is about, it's about realizing what you can do with the infrastructure, with cyber infrastructure, with the research components, and the many things that come together, and make that a possibility, and realizing what you could do through that. A little bit more, the purpose of the MSCC is there. We are very grateful to the National Science Foundation through a couple of awards that have made it possible to advance what was an effort that actually started back in 2017, 2018 by a number of people coming together from these institutions. So if you want more information about the MSCC, please look us up on our website as well. I have to offer a disclaimer real quick. What I'm about to talk about is a very simple, when I think about what drove the need to do the survey, this was back in the summer of last year, but I want to make sure that it's understood that this was not an NSF survey, this was a community survey, a poll survey to kind of check the temperature with our community. And of course, everybody has been talking about the rise of AI in higher ed and research. And prior to May of last year, I was getting questions. I'm the principal investigator for these funded activities for the MSCC, but also my colleagues as to why are we getting more requests or proposals from faculty from HBCUs or from TCUs? And as you saw from Mr. Hart, he kind of showed you kind of what was happening in March and so forth. And, we were conveying back to our community everything that we could about the NAIR pilot. But it became very clear that also there was just not a lot of awareness about the NAIR pilot. And needless to say, if you don't have awareness of the NAIR pilot also, maybe you knew about it, but the resources at the time also were such that also we were, well, who might use these resources, and do people even, in their everyday work, would they want to use these resources? So we wanted to just, first and foremost, just understand what is the awareness level of NAIR pilot resources, but also just general receptibility around AI and the use of AI in research and also in education. So we also had to think, how you frame the questions is really important as well. So we had to think about how to put the questions in a way that they would also resonate with our community. And again, not just look at uses of AI in research, but uses of AI in education. So let's see. So we put together a very quick survey using Qualtrics, not very complicated. We send it to our community. The MSCC community is growing very nicely. We have over 800 participants that come from the entire R&E community. And of course, we have a lot of engaged participation now from faculty, students, administrators, and students too, from HBCUs, TCUs, and other HSIs. But anybody in the community can participate in our community, and part of what we do is to enable that community to talk to one another. So, but we work with other organizations like the American Indian Higher Education Consortium, which supports tribal colleges and universities to also disseminate the survey, and then, forwarded this to other places like CASI, another NSF funded effort that supports Hispanic serving institutions. So send out the survey. As you can see, the survey was open for a period of time between May and June. And let's see, we had about 150 responses. We were able to also ask people to self-identify in whatever role they might have, from researcher, faculty, administrator, student, and several other ones. And then a lot of people checked out different roles. And then roughly you can see the percents in terms of the type of institutions that responded to our survey as well. Okay, I'm going to tell you very quickly about some of the findings that we realized through this effort. So first, across the board, HBCUs and TCUs are using AI tools, especially those around grading tools. Of course, we ask other questions around programming tools, note takers, cloud, system tools, and so on. We had a question about the NAIR pilot resources, but we didn't break it down by the resources on the NAIR pilot. Again, we wanted to get a general awareness first of receptiveness and feelings around the uses of AI in research and education. Real quick, HBCUs and 2-year TCUs indicated a familiarity with machine learning tools, while 4-year TCUs indicated a high degree of unfamiliarity with these same tools. This might highlight the difficulty in having a one-size-fits-all approach to connecting these institutions to AI resources. It's also worth noting that in other questions, respondents show some familiarity with things such as AWS and OpenAI, both of which are notable notable resources, if you will, and tools in the NAIR pilot. We also got responses that indicated as the likelihood of utilizing AI in future research, but we did not get too deep into the how, okay? Responses from TCUs express a high degree of unfamiliarity with machine learning tools, but show an interest in facilitated discussions and training in AI tools and resources. We also learned that there was a lower familiarity with system management tools, and we confirm very low familiarity with the NSF NAIR pilot, again, as of last summer, this point in time. So this said, we did see, interestingly, respondents indicate we are familiar with public and private resources such as OpenAI, ChatGPT, and others as a whole. The MSCC community, nonetheless, indicated unfamiliarity with the NAIR pilot itself, or with the resources associated with it. It was worth noting that although limited, we did get some responses from 4-year HBCU respondents that indicated, okay, we know about the pilot, but again, we didn't drill down into, well, how much do you know about the pilot, okay? Other key findings. Overall, we learned that there are, positive attitudes towards AI in higher education research and instructions. Regardless of the institutional classification, respondents also indicating that they were not conducting research using AI or not aware of these things. However, respondents did indicate that, agreement around, AI could be useful in research, but it could also be a cost-effective solution for us. I am available to provide you copies of the whole report that we produce and more granularity into the questions. So, and my slides were a little bit out of order here. So I mentioned this. So forgive me because I know these graphs are a little bit hard to see, but I'll try to summarize real quickly and other things that we learned. Certainly AI, at least from the responses that we got, is seen as a strategic priority, particularly at 4-year HBCUs. And most of that agreement came from those serving in faculty, academic roles, researchers, and cabinet level positions. But this was interesting too. Those that we were able to at least identify as instructors and IT professionals seem to show a bit of a reluctance to state that AI was or not a priority at their institutions. Other concerns that we were able to kind of see, while many expressed a lot of excitement about the use of AI in higher education research, there was also a high degree of skepticism about all the unknowns about AI. This community seemed to also be in agreement about the concerns around ethical and policy considerations, and highlighting the need to also address those before AI could have widespread use in higher education, and again, relevant to the context of these institutions as well. Across the board, however, also our community indicated that AI is expected to be a permanent fixture into academic research and education in the next few years. So, some initial conclusions. I want to bring up one important thing that might not surprise you, which is I'm going to talk about realities. The reality today continues to be that there are persistent barriers already in place that are affecting researchers in many of the institutions that the MSCC is working with, okay? And these also prevent or present obstacles to the ability to also participate into the larger cyber infrastructure and resource space. To be successful in fulfilling the intended vision for the NAIR, and we've been hearing a lot about that, it's important that I note that the pilot and whatever comes after we leave today needs to go beyond just providing resources to those researchers and educators who already have the expertise and ability to use AI resources. You all got to see the presentation by Mr. Hart on what has happened this past year, okay? The NAIR pilot needs to also enable students, educators, and researchers who are not part of this community and include them while also providing opportunities so that they can effectively attain the benefits expected from the NAIR. The MSCC is in a good position, and we envision being an effort that can leverage our work with HBCUs and TCUs and other minority-serving institutions to help understand how to effectively use the resources and opportunities that the NAIR pilot currently and the NAIR eventually might provide, and that can significantly contribute and benefit from the promise of AI. You've been hearing a lot of references about advancing the workforce necessary to support an AI-enabled cyber infrastructure too. So for MSCC, this is important because we got some work to do here, and we want to focus on also more awareness, skilling, and training, which is something that also our response groups gave us, and also removing barriers. This was a very simple survey, and again, it's important that I let you know we did this in a short amount of time, and things are very different than in the summer of 2024. We certainly need to drill deeper, and that is something that we need to look at. And between the period of time when this survey closed, we produced a report, and here we are. In the ramp up for this conference, I need to let you know that also, without doing a survey, there are hundreds of faculty and researchers at these institutions that are doing important work in AI, okay? Employing AI in not only how they're educating, but increasingly in their research. And we might not have gotten many of them to respond to our survey, but guess what? We engaged them as a result of this meeting coming together, and we need to continue to do so. So we might do more surveys. There's a lot more work to be done. But in the audience here today, there are some faculty and their students from these institutions. And forgive me because I'm going to ask you to either stand up or show your hand. But I want to thank you because you are here, you're participating in these conversations, and that's very, very important. And I want to thank you because the work that you're doing is critical if the NAIR is going to be realized. And we need more of you, not only in this room, but in the subsequent conversation. So if you could please, you can see some of them, not everybody's here, but could you please stand up if you are a faculty researcher or whatever role from the MSCC community. Thank you very much. And then, of course, I want to do a blatant commercial because the MSCC will be holding its annual meeting in Nashville, Tennessee. And of course, we're going to be talking about the use of AI in research and education. So please come to Nashville. And I know that you're still in a meeting here. And end of May looks like a long way away. But I'm inviting all of you to come to the MSCC meeting. Thank you very much.
Questions for Anna?
Anna, I want to just really applaud the effort and the work of this group. I have amazing and lovely students, but many of them have grown up internationally, and we need to make sure that we create pipelines of students that are also from the US, and we need to do that from a defense perspective and a security perspective, because there are certain projects that require that, and I'm excited to see a well-rounded pool of candidates for higher education. So, and I think the other thing to remember is that this helps facilitate entering AI at various different levels, right? And so that's also a great thing. So thank you.
Thank you.
Think on. Thank you
All right,
so much.
thank you.
That was fantastic. Very inspiring. Next up, are you ready? We're going to have a report on the NAIR software workshop from DK Panda, who's at The Ohio State University and Argonne National Lab. Thank you so much.
Okay, good morning, everybody. I'm from the Ohio State University. I'm not at the Argonne, but Mike, my co-organizer, is from Argonne. So I'd like to thank Mike. So two of us worked together on this NAIR software workshop. How many of you are familiar with that workshop? Okay, some of you. I know a lot of you attended. I'll go into more details. So it all started almost like, 9 months back, 9 to 10 months back. As we are hearing about all these resources being provided, so the question is, can we actually develop some open source software stack, either one or a multiple of them, to actually satisfy the need of this community? So that's how it started. And I'd like to thank again, I think this was a joint effort between NSF and DOE, Sheikh from NSF and SAS and David from DOE guided us, both Mike and me, and of course under Katie's higher level guidelines to really go through and then explore what are the kind of the gaps exist today and what can be done in the future. So that's what I'll be talking. That was the workshop. So I'll start with this high level workshop goals, objectives and plan, how we conducted the workshop. And before the workshop, we also had a pre-workshop survey. And that was our the initial data to see what people are feeling. And then I'll conclude it with the workshop outcomes. So these were the, some of the high-level workshop goals. So to begin the process of defining the needs. So it is not like we have a solution now, but it started with saying, okay, let's try to define the needs, scope and requirements of an AI software stack, or it can be a combination of different stacks that could be implemented as part of the eventual full-scale NAIR. And then to identify a few areas and activities that could be explored and piloted as a part of the NAIR pilot. And then, of course, these were some of the goals kind of things that the software stack or software stack should spur innovation, increase talent, improve capacity, provide training, and also advancing trustworthy AI. Going into a little bit more details, so that very high-level charge was being translated into some of these objectives, saying let's try to define a comprehensive AI software stack that includes computer programs, training, inference frameworks, libraries, user interfaces, debuggers, performance tools. And at the same time, the stack should be accessible to a broad audience and adaptable to the evolving needs. And as all of us know, the AI field is moving so fast. So we had to break it down, saying even if we design a software stack now, it cannot be valid for 5 years or 10 years. So we divided into a shorter term range, like 2 years, what we can do, and then a longer term goals, like what we can do in the 5 years. And then, of course, some of the key areas of focus were like a real-time data analysis, privacy, security, foundational models, libraries, software portability, and also data and model curation. So we try to divide actually that workshop into a lot of these kind of focus areas, like first to identify like what are the AI software needs, how we can leverage existing stacks, because many of you are already using a lot of systems, even in the NAIR pilot resource providers, we are using it. And then compared to that, like what is still missing, what is the gap, and how do we move forward, set priorities for development, and also define the integration process. As some of you know, if you would be developing some software stacks, there are so many different components. And each component can have multiple solutions. So the question is, how do we really integrate? And who will do those integration kind of things? And of course, in that process, we have to identify, promote the ethical AI practices. And the most important one, which actually came out also as a major outcome, identify the associated training needs. Because in this community, what we found out in the workshop, some people are very experts, some people are naive, they are just starting. So there is a very big gap of using all these resources. So what kind of additional training needs we need to provide? So first we formed a technical program committee. I know several of you are here. Can you just raise your hand, please? Contributed, so thank you. So we formed these things and we went over almost like a weekly meeting to refine our objectives, to come together with the agenda. And then when we met in December, 2 days at Argonne, thanks to Mike and his excellent staff members, they made things much more easier. We had around like more than 100 researchers attending that in person, and many others were also virtual. So as you can see here, there are 52 universities, 30 national labs, 13 different agencies, 7 industry, and 3 other were represented to bring the kind of a consensus from all the diverse areas. And the URL is actually there. If you just note it down, in fact, I'll go into more details. The draft report is already available there. And I'll not go into these details. Just like any other workshop, we had several keynote talks, multiple breakout sessions, panels, and then had an active discussion for 2 days. And so the draft version of the report is available. And we would like to welcome comments and feedbacks from this community. So we are giving like around 5 weeks. Please take a look at it. And on that web page also, there is a very nice interface for you to submit comments so that we can get it. And then we'll be discussing it with all our technical program committee members and then finalize this report. So your contribution will really be helpful. So please take a look because we don't want to miss anything. If you have something concretely you would like to have it in that report, this is the best time for you to let us know, and then we can reflect that to NSF and DOE and all other agencies. So before the workshop, we came up with a set of questions, just like what we see in the other reports also. So some of the major ones I'll try to show you. Again, we started asking questions saying, okay, what software do you currently use for AI application? And as you can see the answers, PyTorch, TensorFlow, Scikit, Hugging Face, APIs such as OpenAI, those were the most prevalent ones people have been using now. Of course, some other things are also being used, but not in a big manner. And then the question was like, how you are using this, okay? And here the answers, as you can see, developing and training the AI models, fine-tuning, model alignment, inferencing, developing evaluation metrics, and data set curation. So those are the 5 ones which stood out. So that's what the community is currently working on. And then we asked the question like, where do you run the AI applications? And this was like a spreaded over different things. I mean, many people are actually just doing local laptop, okay? Those are like I mean, they don't have a very heavy need, but still they are like continuing with their AI needs. Of course, the HPC clusters at universities that got the maximum kind of the responses, leadership class supercomputers, of course, the cloud like Azure, AWS, and of course, the edge devices. Okay, so this was kind of a spread we saw where the applications are running. But this was the final question, I think, which led us to a lot of discussion at the workshop saying, what challenges are you encountering? Because that's what we want to alleviate. And the biggest one was, of course, gaining access to infrastructure. And that we heard today morning from David. I mean, it's all these near pilot resources, providers are there, so people should be trying to take advantage of that. I still feel, just even from the OSU, not many people are familiar with this. Like these resources are available. Somehow they feel that you have to be a member of the AI institutes to get this access. So I've been trying to send emails within OSU just to say, no, this is a generalized AI resources. You don't have to be a member of the AI Institute. And I believe if more and more people will know about it, that will be helpful. And then the second one was like a lack of adequate documents. And these are especially important for the entry-level users, might be non-computer scientists. When they are coming, they would like to have some guidance. Okay, might be some of us who are working in this area for many years. We know exactly training. You go change this parameter, do this SGD, all kind of things we know, but the end users don't know. They are totally lost. Okay, software setup, that is also a big thing. And of course, we'll try to address that on the outcome side. And there's a steep learning curve, model scaling issues. Everybody wants to have the training, but as some of you might be knowing, and the training is not an easier thing. You cannot just blindly start the training, even though you have a lot of images, resources, you have to exactly adjust the parameters and make sure it is converging. So many people don't have that knowledge. Okay, so somehow that we have to provide to the community. And then performance optimization, that has always been a challenge, just like the traditional HPC. Yeah, you get a resource, you see that your application is scaling up to 4 GPUs, 8 GPUs. After that, performance is very bad. So what is happening exactly? So somehow the information has to be provided. And then, of course, the reasoning about the results, that I think we know. This is a big field, explainable AI, how do you reason about the results, and then the security and privacy kind of things. So those were the most it provided us the background. Before we even went into the workshop, we actually discussed that in the morning session so that everybody is aware of this. And then, of course, with the detailed workshop, so these are the high-level outcomes. Again, under no priority here or nothing saying the number 1 is important than number 2. This was like we were asked just to present them in a flat manner. So the first one is, of course, the near pilot software stack will leverage both existing and emerging software solution. We don't want to start from scratch. There are a lot of solutions are available, so we need to leverage from that. And it has to cater to a range of users, from novice to experts, across diverse hardware platforms and accelerators, including those used for education. And notably, the HPC community views this solution as a layered software stack, just like any other software stack you do, which is optimized for performance and scalability. And in contrast, I think somehow there is a disconnect, as many of you might be knowing, HPC community and AI community. Of course, now we are converging, and each community has its own perspective. And we hope that through the software stack, these two communities will also converge. So the AI community often refers to a broader software ecosystem that tightly integrates data, user support, training frameworks. For them, users log on to one system and start your work. They don't want to understand all the details, what is happening, whereas the HPC community, you always go, somebody is looking at all those lower layers, okay, what is happening. The AI community, again, there are a lot of respected AI researchers, of course, they are working in that area. They don't have the knowledge of the lower layer. So I think we need to bridge that gap. And that's what was the conclusion. Near effort must bridge this perspective so that we can serve all stakeholders effectively. The second one was that 2 parts, like the stack must respond to the evolving needs of the scientific and AI communities, including real-time data analysis, privacy, security, and more importantly, portability across emerging AI hardware. In the morning, we saw that in the resource provider list, like we have all these Cerebras and all those very advanced machines, and I think it was nicely put by David, saying people just ask for requests, like NeoCortex system doesn't have GPU, okay? So somebody should be knowing these kind of differences. So that knowledge has to be provided, and then might be somebody can ask, saying, okay, I have taken care of training on the NVIDIA GPUs, and can I run it on NeoCortex? Okay, so this kind of the portability we are trying to see, whether it can work or not. Data management, of course, that's the most important. In fact, we spent a lot of time, I think, in that group. The data management, which consists of cleaning, curation, annotation, to make sure that you have clean data before you start the operation. So that is a big challenge, and there is no standardized effort there. Every community, every domain scientist are using in their ad hoc fashion, so there must be some work needed here to work on this. And then, of course, then coming into the software stack, as many of you must be knowing if you would have designed the software stack, I mean, these are the things: operating system, middleware solutions for communication, resource management, languages, compiler support, workflow managers, AI-related libraries, models, and frameworks. And these components must remain flexible, because we cannot just tell that, okay, you only use this version of the library or that version of the resource management. There is a range of solutions, so we need to make sure that the software stacks, whatever we are developing, they can be made very easily extensible to accommodate future technology advances. And then there was the big effort was like the most of the AI field is heading into the open source. So we want to make sure that these are like things are getting done in an open source manner, ensuring support for newer hardware as they come on, and essentially keeping the NAIR stack at the forefront of technological advances so that it doesn't just get obsolete in another 2 years or 3 years. And the fifth one is also very important, and that's what there was a lot of discussion saying that the stack should also offer easy to use interfaces like Jupyter notebooks, web-based platforms, so that the novice users can very quickly come on board. Okay? They don't have to understand, like if you are an advanced HPC user, you know about all your Slurm, how to launch the jobs, bring the distributed PyTorch. They don't have to understand all those things. We want to make it very easier so that they can very quickly jump in to lower the barrier of the newcomers to the AI. And then at the same time, the training and continuous user support cannot be separated from the software itself. So there has to be somehow integrated so that the end users feel that they are able to utilize these stacks in a much more easier manner. So that led to this the important thing, saying the stack must address the near-term user support and training needs. And especially, there were a lot of discussions saying who will provide that. Okay, I mean, so even that integration also will do. The members suggested like the funding small supplements for current grantees during the NAIR pilot, so that the attendees also recommended like creating chatbot interfaces, like using AI itself for the new users to come on board. I mean, these days, as you know, like the ChatGPT is becoming very common, all these ChatGPT, DeepSeek. So why don't we use that itself to provide a very nice user interface with the software stack so that it can also further reduce the barrier to adoption and ensuring efficient troubleshooting and assistance. Okay? So those are the major like 6 directions. With this, I'll conclude here. We'll be very happy to answer questions. I'll invite Mike also to come here. If there are any questions and comments, both of us will answer that, and we look forward to your comments. Thank you.
And we can bring Mike Papka up here, who is actually at Argonne National Lab.
Yeah. You can come, Mike. That should not be. He did a lot of work. So. Yeah. Yes, please.
I have 2 questions. The first one is the target audience for this infrastructure is, I believe it's not just the research community, because we really need to bring up a workforce which needs to know how to use all these assets to be productive in the community, right? So what you would assume for a typical research person, you cannot assume for
yes.
the population. I just wanted to make sure that was one of the requirements in the way you thought about the whole thing.
Yes, so that is actually very clear. That's what I said, like there was some people don't have, I mean, some people are heavy researchers, but other people are like from other domain scientists, they just want to use. So we are trying to take care of that complete spectrum.
That's great. So the second question is around the architecture of what you have in mind. So is the plan to come up with some kind of a reference architecture, and you figure out how much of these components are already supported by open source, and keep the option open whether to introduce proprietary components versus open source components, so you're not getting stuck into something, right? So
that Mike can answer that. Yeah.
So, given DK's in my background, we thought this is exactly what we're going to go into this meeting. We're going to have this discussion, and we're going to software stack is going to pop out. And actually, to your first question, that's what became apparent at the meeting. Mm-hmm. We had a very diverse audience, and the existing software infrastructure that's out there is just so overwhelming that we spent a lot of time talking about that. I don't think we could envision building a single software stack. The AI world around us is moving so fast that we're just not, we don't have the infrastructure. DOE, NSF, we don't have enough time to react. And so we're going to it'll be a lot of partnering with industry and tracking. I think there's a lot of activities in making the community aware of how to use the tools that are there. I don't see us building our own unique stack that's proprietary to the science community. It's more of a partnership.
Yeah, the reason I brought it up is more and more of these components are available in open source, and which gives obviously a lot of freedom to the people who are using it, right, in terms of what they can contribute and what they can do. My only thought there is if you define an architecture and say this is what we need, and then it's easier for you to fill in with what's already available and what you need to develop. That's the only reason for it. So.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I believe there has to be a little bit of different group of people or some subset people. We need to sit down and define that architecture. Okay. We just couldn't get time on that. Even though 2 days, there were a lot of other issues came up. We couldn't even go to this issue. Okay.
Yeah, I have a similar question that has to do with the software ecosystem that when you're using in practice in AI. Covers a lot of both open source and commercial resources, and some of them, I wonder if you have considered an assessment of what risks we face as an overall research community to commercial offerings where they could be withdrawn at any time. They don't, companies don't particularly make any money. We don't fund them as on government contracts or anything like that. So, I'll give you an example. I sometimes worry what happens if Google decides not to host Google Colab anymore. I've sort of created, huge numbers of class curricula, a lot of on-ramping of AI scientists, a lot of tutorial materials, all pointing to Google Colab resources designed to use their level of free GPU access that the company doesn't charge for. They're just sort of offering out of the goodness of their heart. But as far as I know, they're sort of playing the role that I would imagine that the US government should play in making sure that there's a secure groundwork for on-ramping beginners and people coming onto this thing. But it's just sort of, they're in a very hot competition right now with other AI competitors as they look at how they're spending their AI dollars. What happens when they realize, oh, we could use those GPUs for something else? I think that would cause this huge crisis. And there's probably a few examples of this type of thing. And I wonder if this should be part of the conversation.
I mean, we had a discussion about just like that comment about Jupyter Notebook came, saying that let's try to keep most of the things first open source and have easy interfaces, but we didn't go into especially saying whether we should be dependent on this component or that component.
I think that we are already very dependent. Like if Google Colab disappeared tomorrow, I think a lot of us would be in trouble for education and ramping up and learning and all sorts of, even a bunch of research is being done on Google Colab. And so, it's just as an example.
Sure.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I mean, that's absolutely correct, but I'd also even take it a bit further. Our investment in an open source software isn't guaranteed, right? I mean,
right.
We build this infrastructure out, lots of it's funded on research dollars to get started, but to sustain it, to port it to the next platform, it's not really research anymore, and how is that maintained? So this is an ongoing question,
Great.
both in NSF and DOE, even in that space.
Sure. Great, thanks.
I think that's last word. Yeah. Please.
Yeah, just I want to piggyback on the similar. So in your software stack, start with operating systems. So these operating systems keep changing, and so over a period of time, you have to revamp a lot of things based on operating systems. So this may be little silly questions. Do you thinking the stack preparing without operating systems?
The stack, sorry, I couldn't catch the last one.
So the stack, everything is laid on operating system, right? So are you, or is this may be out of box question. I maybe not apply to many people here. But are you thinking that, building without having means operating systems, the stack focus on?
It's a very tough question. So, no, we haven't thought about a specific OS that that this had to be targeted. I think that'd be also, again, impossible to do, because people are going to want to work on their desktop. They're going to move out to the smaller systems. We've got all the AI startup company. That would be a huge undertaking. I mean, I think we definitely want as much commonality, and DK mentioned this, portability, right? So if you're developing on your desktop, you're going to want to go to a cerebral system. So we want as much portability there, but I don't think we're going to define a OS, the layered on top of.
Okay, so I just want to bring, like, we are working one of the system we call bare machine system. Means there is no operating system. We can build any single application, but it need a lot of software people help. So, but we're right this point we're thinking building hardware chips built into that. We call bare chips, so where you don't need any other facilities, and that will enable to doing that. So that's why I thought this in stack, if you have already upper layer part, and if you can chime into lower part, and see that if you can integrate and see. But I say this may be not as a general audience questions. So even bare machine computing training is very laborious work. So that's why like people are discouraged to use. It's one of the safest security system we have built, but it's impossible to use. So it's kind of useless at this point. But thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you both very much.
Thanks.
I do predict some lively lunch conversations. So our final presentation before lunch is on the Trustworthy AI Workshop Report, Community-Informed Policies and Best Practices for the NAIR with Julia Stoyanovich at New York University. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. It's great to be here. And it's my pleasure to give a brief report. I'll try to stay on time because I'm between you and lunch. On a workshop on community-informed policies and best practices for the NAIR. I'm Julia Stoyanovich. I am on the faculty in computer science and data science at NYU. And I also direct a center there called the Center for Responsible AI. Our goal is to make responsible AI synonymous with AI in a not too distant future. And I'm really glad to have an opportunity to say the words responsible AI and trustworthy AI on the stage today. So I'm just gonna pause here for a second. The work we do towards this goal is a combination of technical and socio-technical research, AI policy and regulation, locally, at the state level in New York, as well as federally in the recent past, and internationally. And we also do a lot of work on education, training, and literacy. So if any of this is of interest to you, please come and talk to me. I'd be thrilled to share some of our work with you. Right, so now to the workshop. The workshop was convened in late July 2024 at New York University, and it brought together over 50 representatives from academia, industry, and government who were and are among the leading experts in cyber infrastructure, as well as AI policy, governance, and responsible AI. And the goal of this workshop at the high level was to inform the development of priorities and policies for the NAIR, with a particular focus on advancing trustworthy AI. People have been asking those of you in the audience to stand up for various reasons, so I'd like for those of you who were at the workshop to please stand up and wave. I know there are more of you here, I saw some of you. Yeah, okay, great. This workshop was supported by the NSF and by Omidyar Network. They are a non-governmental partner of the NAIR pilot. You can use these QR codes to take a look at the full list of participants, at the agenda, as well as at the workshop reports. It's at the center. The QR code is in the center of the slide, and I will be showing you this QR code as we progress through the discussion today. So the agenda for this workshop was a combination of plenary discussions and breakout sessions that I will talk about in a bit more detail. The goals of the workshop are summarized on this slide. They were to obtain community feedback on policies and best practices to help shape the development of priorities for the NER, to provide suggestions for improving the trustworthiness of the resources that make part of the NER, and support their equitable use by a diverse group of researchers, educators, and students. And the final goal was community building. It was to foster dialogue among the AI policy, governance, and responsible AI and cyber infrastructure communities, to build synergies around embedding trustworthiness and responsibility into the design and operation of the NER. Through extensive deliberations, workshop participants distilled and made concrete some key arguments for why the NER should be positioned and remain a top national priority. And I'm summarizing these arguments on this slide. Oh, sorry, these are all ones for some reason. Something happened here. They are 1, 2, 3, and 4. So the first is that the NER is poised to serve as a blueprint for integrating trustworthy and responsible AI tools, policies, and best practices into the design and operation of advanced cyber infrastructure, which is necessary for maintaining our national leadership in AI. And this was true when we convened in June of last year, and it remains true and is even more so true today. The NER distinguishes itself from other cyber infrastructure projects by viewing human expertise as a resource on par with data and compute resources. And this is a theme that has been frequently brought up in all of our conversations so far at this workshop today and then yesterday. And this approach, centering on humans, on human expertise, positions the NER as a means to lower barriers to entry into AI research and development and to train a diverse cadre of AI researchers and practitioners. The third key takeaway is that the NER will strengthen the US AI R&D ecosystem by addressing critical scientific and societal challenges that can only be solved by integrating, by an integrated community of researchers, educators, and entrepreneurs who come from a diversity of disciplinary backgrounds and geographic locations and represent a broad range of lived experiences. Once again, I hope that we will keep this in mind, this need for diversity and the range of lived experiences when we design and operate this resource. And the fourth and final key takeaway is that the NER will serve as a unique measurement instrument to operationally define and then quantify the impact of democratizing access to data and cyber infrastructure, of education and training, and of community engagement on accelerating scientific research, fostering responsible innovation, expanding the AI workforce, and strengthening the national ecosystem of AI research and development. Workshop participants provided several concrete suggestions for operational priorities that would enable the NER to achieve its ambitious goal of becoming a trustworthy AI cyber infrastructure. And here again, this should be 1, 2, and 3. So the first is, while computing resources are a critical component of the NER, it should also provide access to data, software, and process resources. And further, the NER should provide access to human expertise. And I spoke about this already. This was one of the key findings, and it's a key suggestion. By integrating training, support, and access to community of like-minded researchers, educators, and students into resource provisioning. The second is that the NER should establish resource allocation policies that prioritize access over selectivity, to make the resource as broadly available as possible, reward responsible and trustworthy AI practices, and be informed by a structure of incentives that ensures that both resource consumers and resource providers benefit from participating in the NER. The third key suggestion was that the NER should operationalize trustworthy and responsible AI principles and primitives as part of the infrastructure. And this is something that will require basic research, both technical research, cyber infrastructure research, but also socio-technical research and interventions. And this operationalization may include tools and methods for assessing representativeness and fitness for use of a dataset or a model, finding datasets or models based on transparency documentation, and generating and maintaining transparency documentation semi-automatically to accompany research outputs. And all of this challenges the state of the art at the moment in how we run cyber infrastructure and how we do AI development and research. So on this slide I have 4 and 5. Okay, these numbers got preserved, although the formatting got messed up a little bit, sorry. So the fourth key suggestion is that the NAIR should establish and make publicly available trustworthy AI metrics and measurement protocols. And this is also something that is novel. We actually don't know how to measure progress towards trustworthiness. And it should be instrumented to assess progress towards trustworthy AI using these metrics and protocols. The final suggestion was that the NAIR should expand its community building efforts to encourage collaborations between technical and domain experts, facilitate sharing of results and experiences, and maintain a living repository of rich examples and case studies. The NAIR should also foster interactions between the responsible AI and cyber infrastructure communities to further incorporate trustworthiness objectives into the design and operation of the cyber infrastructure. And now I'm going to show you the only actual image that came out of this workshop. So workshop participants envisioned the NAIR as a national cyber infrastructure that operationalizes the principles of trustworthy and responsible AI. The NAIR will support researchers, educators, students, and entrepreneurs coming from diverse disciplinary backgrounds and geographic locations, and representing a broad range of lived experiences in solving scientific and societal problems of national importance. Participants of the NAIR will leverage education, training, and other kinds of support, as well as state-of-the-art computing infrastructure and a range of open and secure datasets coming from the NAIR Open and NAIR Secure components, respectively, to expand domain-specific AI R&D capabilities over time. This is the agenda. I'm going to flip through it. You can take a look at the website, but essentially we had a combination of plenary presentations that were few and opportunities for breakouts and discussion that were many. We ran 8 breakout sessions in total, with 4 running in parallel on each one of the full days. And each session included experts in cyber infrastructure and in responsible AI. And in fact, we deliberately put people together from these 2 communities into each one of these breakouts to make sure that there is a community building exercise also happening. Right, so in the remaining 2 minutes, I will just give you a high-level sense of what these breakouts discussed, and you can take a look at the report to see more information about this. So breakout 1 was on NAIR operations. To summarize this breakout, participants were prompted with the following text. The NAIR is envisioned as a national cyber infrastructure to democratize and accelerate AI R&D. Its success is predicated on an effective operational strategy, which must align with the 4 measurable goals of the NAIR, and specifically with advancing trustworthy AI, both through its own operations and by serving as an enabler of trustworthy AI research. Here, participants discussed what the specific goals are that the NAIR should pursue to advance trustworthy and responsible AI, what metrics can be used, how resource can be conceptualized, and how access to resources can be democratized. Participants identified 3 categories of resources in the operational allocation space, and these are compute, data and models, and human expertise. The second group spoke about assessing progress towards trustworthy AI. And here again, the conversation was about metrics, about community engagement, about the importance of education and training, and about reducing barriers to entry while implementing trustworthy AI standards with positive incentives like leaderboards and recognition to encourage participation. Group 3 focused on community engagement, and here we spoke about what it means to democratize access to the AI innovation ecosystem through the NER, and the role that community engagement plays in this democratization. Participants discussed, among other topics, the fact that the NER is uniquely focused on human expertise and community engagement, which distinguishes it from existing platforms like AWS. And they discussed the role of the NER in operationalizing trustworthy AI at scale. They spoke about the need to address competing stakeholder interests through conflict resolution and positive incentives to build a diverse and cohesive community. And they also discussed how one might measure the impact of community engagement through metrics of participation, diversity, institution type, geographic distribution, as well as traditional research impact factors. The fourth breakout was dedicated to how one might engage industry partners in the NER in ways that are productive, because industry participation and partnership is essential for the NER to work, but also in ways that negotiate some of these actual and potential conflicts between industry participation and academic research and community engagement. In this group, participants spoke about potential conflicts in terms of incentives, about balancing stakeholder interests, and about ensuring trustworthiness of the NER by accepting only responsible industry partners and incorporating benchmarks for energy efficiency and sustainability. The fifth group spoke about transparency as an enabler of trustworthy AI, which is concerned with providing the information that stakeholders need to make informed, responsible, and ethical decisions for data and model development, sharing, and reuse. A key enabler of trustworthy AI, transparency enhances accountability, supports reproducibility, promotes scientific integrity, improves system reliability, fosters trust, and strengthens human agency. What's not to like? We need transparency, but of course the point is that it's very difficult to achieve. So in this breakout, we spoke about a very concrete characterization of transparency that was transparency as data and model documentation, and discussed what it would take to embed meaningful, useful, scalable data and model documentation into the NER, extending on the FAIR principles and going beyond data to ensure that datasets, models, and AI systems include metadata for assessing fitness for use in specific domain contexts. We discussed existing transparency frameworks and spoke about what it would take to make something like datasheets, model cards, or nutritional labels useful and usable within a complex infrastructure like the NER, emphasizing the continuous interactive documentation through the AI lifecycle. And we also, of course, spoke about the need for establishing incentives for transparency, because documentation is difficult and tedious work. Nobody likes to document their code or their data. So how can we make it so that this is not only required, but also useful and meaningful to data producers and model producers, as well as consumers? I'm out of time, unfortunately. So breakout 6 was on making the NER a data equity infrastructure. Here again, we see community engagement, ways to vet data sets and models requiring metadata documentation, supporting community learning, and also tracking resource allocation in accordance with our trustworthiness metrics. So many of the themes are echoed throughout these sessions, as you can see. The seventh group was about education and training, and here we spoke, or participants rather spoke at length about how one can make it so that we lower the barrier to entry into the NER to those users who are less experienced or come from a less resource-rich domains, and who are really one of the primary constituencies here. How can we offer dedicated support for less experienced users? How can we offer domain-specific training, continuous learning, How can we accommodate small businesses? And how can we assess the effectiveness of training? The last breakout was on responsible development and use of generative AI. And here I will summarize that the discussion of this group was really not Gen AI specific. They echoed many of the messages that came through in the other groups, where we need to think about how we responsibly use and reuse data and models, and then also what is a way for the NAIR to support AI assurance and risk monitoring, and how does one involve stakeholders in both the development and oversight of these systems. So in summary, the NAIR is envisioned as a cyber infrastructure whose objective is to strengthen and democratize the AI innovation ecosystem. This report from this workshop summarized the key findings, and I invite all of you to take a look and to please provide feedback. I hope that the NAIR will remain a top national priority, and in my opinion, the only way to do this is to think very carefully about trustworthiness and responsibility objectives. Thank you.